Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our broadcast here today, I want to take a moment and recognise the life of one of RaceSpot TV's commentators, John Granger, who lost his life a couple of days ago. Now, John was an avid endurance racing fan, and he actually probably would want to have been on this broadcast here tonight because he loved endurance racing that much. And if anyone who'd seen him in any of our broadcasts will know that John was more than just a commentator. He was someone who lived and breathed the series. From the stats, to understand the way strategies would work, to understanding each and every driver and their team and how they can make a race happen. John was always a fantastic person. I am proud to have called him a colleague, and it's unfortunate that he's no longer with us. RaceSpot TV, Friday Night Primetime will start in a moment's time. Welcome to Friday Night Primetime here on RaceSpot TV and on iRacing Live. Wolverton and Connie as we go to the Proto GT Series at the one and only, the most famous of endurance racetracks in the world, Circuit de la Sarre, Le Mans. They'll be racing for 75 minutes around this racetrack, and you can see that, well, the track conditions here today, Connery, it's cool and it's a bit windy, but actually it's not a bad day for racing.
No, not a bad day at all. We got a bit of increased cloud cover here, just bringing that track temperature down a little bit to the 27 degrees Celsius that it's at right now. But apart from that, seems like a very, very good evening for racing. Most of your drivers are out there on probably what is going to be their final qualifying lap, because the session is drawing to a close. But look at that top of the prototype field by what is going to be half a second, Marcus Hamilton.
Indeed so. So we're going to run through your grid in just one moment's time, as drivers will be lining themselves up on that starting grid. And we're going to start by running through your prototype field, and Marcus Hamilton, a 3 minutes 29.451. You said it there, Connery. He's got himself a almost 6/10 of a second advantage over Philip Barr in second place, which are by Schultz and Paul Ilbrink on row number 2. We cycle on back. There's row number 3. Emmanuel Gallner and James Crayshaw on that third row of the grid. Then you got yourself Florence Hoogville and Giancarlo Bottolini there on the outside of row 4. Dmitry Lidov and Martin Tilgard, they ran at your top 10. And while Connery, the big field here today is in your prototypes.
Yeah, absolutely huge field. A field of 35 cars in the prototypes, believe it or not. You've got 10 GT1 machines. You've also got the lonely 3 Ford GTs at the back, comprising of the GT2 field.
Yep, so there's a look through then of your LMP field as they finish off working themselves on your screen. And then next off, we're going to show you your GT1 field. And that is got themselves Aston versus Corvette on the front row there, Connery.
Yeah, pole position for your GT1 field is going to be the number 8 of Denis Savaretic there in his Aston Martin, but P number 2 is actually going to be a Corvette, so 2 different machines on the front row for your GT1 field. It's Marianne Barbarek in that Corvette. Then you've got P number 3, Alexandra Godefroy, and of course, John Goodwin rounding out that row.
And there are your 3 drivers in GT2, Oliver Dean, Zachary Levay, and Max Portas. That is your GT2 field here today. We'll turn our attention then to the front of the field as they now begin to work themselves through the Porsche curves. Keys for today's race, Connery: keep the nose clean.
Yeah, especially if you're a driver in this absolutely humongous prototype field. As I said just a couple of moments ago, 35 cars in the prototype field here, and when you consider the whole race is only comprising of 48 cars, then that is a vast majority of the field. So it's good in terms of the if you're a prototype driver that can't really deal with traffic, as there's not really much traffic to get yourself through on. But in terms of racing within your own class, that is very, very busy.
And today we'll be racing for 75 minutes around Circuit de la Sarthe. That means that all drivers will have to do a pit stop. For the Ford GT, looking at about 70 minutes maximum on a tank of fuel. So those 3 drivers might be thinking about who can go the longest and who can undercut the other. In your GT1 cars, they're looking to about 65 minutes on a tank of fuel. In your LMP cars, you're looking at closer to an hour, Connery.
Yes, you are. Usually, we say in the prototype field, usually the time that you're supposed to be aiming for in any normal race, normal endurance race, is going to be about 50 minutes in these prototypes. So that's what they'll be looking to do. But they might want to pin a little bit early to try and get a jump over some of the other drivers, especially if they're in heavy traffic, in which this prototype field is full of.
So here comes your cars then. They are working themselves towards the start of this motor race here on Racesport TV and on iRacing Live. So Marcus Hamilton will be at the front of the field. You can see there the tricolor, the flyover by the French Air Force down towards the forward chicane. Will come Marcus Hamilton to pit this field, put this race in motion. We are ready to go green flag racing. In fact, we are green flag racing here at Circuit de la Sarthe. Dunlop curve for the first time then for your expansive LMP field. It is Marcus Hamilton who leads the way right now. We'll go back and we'll have a look and we'll show you the drivers of your GT1 field, as it is Denis Savaretic there who has himself pole position, and he is leading the charge then as they come down through turn number 1 for the first time through Dunlop curve, and then back to your GT2 field. They have just got themselves going. However, in your prototype field right now, we're on board of Paul Ilbrink. He is in P number 4 right now as drivers work themselves down the long Mulsanne straight for the first time.
Yeah, fairly safe and ordinary start for your three fields right here. Side by side, though, behind Paul Ilbring, that's going to be Hugvel and James Crawshaw heading side by side down into the first Mulsanne chicane, and Hugvel's going to gain that position. But as is going to be a theme throughout the entirety of this race, just because you can make the pass down one part of the Mulsanne doesn't mean you can get repassed on the second.
Yep, so there's a look then from the rear of Paul Ilbrink. As you can see, him and other drivers now working themselves down in towards that second of the Mulsanne chicanes. We're now actually on board the driver of Philip Barr in the number 7. What's going on?
Huge incident involving number 14, James Crawshaw. He just got completely rear-ended by the driver behind. Bartolini, I think, just completely and utterly missed his braking point. Just went a roundabout, getting into 200 kilometers an hour straight into the back of Crawshaw there.
Oh, big one there. There you can see for Bartolini, and that is basically out of the motor race for him, as we just saw there on instant replay. So there's more behind. What's going on? There's more behind in the Formula number 34 car in exactly the same place, and it's almost the exact same incident, Will. It was Abdelkir Al-Amri running into the back of the car ahead of him. That was Alexander Strolfer as well. Pretty much a mirror image. We'll try and see if we get a replay of that one for you in a moment's time. But, well, that second chicane actually at Le Mans, we know it can be the difference maker. And as a consequence, we've now got Al-Amri on pit road. So let's try and see what we can find. We go on board of him. This is the end of the incident. We want to see it happening in real time. Here we are on board of him. Yeah, as you can see, just again, brakes completely way too late, or you could say that some drivers were taking it a little bit tentative coming into that chicane for the first time, which they're allowed to do. It's just a little bit of a lack of awareness there, and it's unfortunately caused those two incidents. Yeah, there was two. In fact, you see one. There's the second incident. I would actually say the second incident was a direct judgment call based on the first one, because you saw how the field was trying to slow down. You have one incident, they actually had a third one behind it as well. Fourth incident, actually. So there was a number of different cars that had big moments down into that second of those Mulsanne chicanes. Yeah, that third instance is actually a Robert de Souza, I believe, and I think that was completely on his own there. I didn't see any other car make contact with him, except perhaps the number 23, as the car was already spinning around. So a lot of drivers just reacting, I guess, to what happened coming down into that chicane on the first lap, and it just caught some other drivers out while they were trying to negotiate that situation. Yeah, indeed so. So we're on to lap number 2 then here on Racesport TV and on iRacing Live. Don't forget, live timing and scoring is now available. Visit racesport.tv/timing if you want to keep up to date with your field here today. Leading the way still is Marcus Hamilton. In fact, Hamilton has got himself the early advantage of just over a second over Philip Burr in your LMP field. And that's, I mean, it comes down on the straightaways, but actually, Hamilton is pulling away.
Yes, he is. You can just see that the relative timings just drop as Philip Bowers is still in the slipstream of the Movano driver ahead of him. But through the corners, Marcus Hamilton is absolutely just gaining a bunch of time coming through these chicanes, coming through the Porsche curves on the first lap. They're able to extend that gap. The gap is coming down to around about 0.8 of a second, but that is only because of this draft. And once Marcus Hamilton breaks the draft, he's going to be off and away.
Indeed so. There is Marcus Hamilton then, 7/10 of a second. Let's go back and have a look at your GT1 field for a moment. And the number 8 machine still leads the driver of Brabeck by about 1.2 seconds. In fact, the overall horsepower of that Aston Martin does seem to have the advantage over the Corvette. And it's not quite often we talk about that, but the front of your field, that Aston Martin with Dennis there, does seem to have the straight line speed advantage as we go on board with P number 4
slow down.
right now.
P number 4, the number 8 driver, Savaretic, your GT1 leader, slow down penalty in the chicane.
And that's going to put him back to P number 4 almost instantaneously. There you can see him then as he's just taken his slow down penalty. And that is huge, because now he's going to have to go through In fact, he's lost even more places as he's not completed that slowdown phase, and all of a sudden, he's now down to P number 6.
Yeah, this track is quite punishing with the track limits. I think this is the second apex of the Forza chicane there. Just took a little bit too much curb, and well, the iRacing system is going to punish you for that one. It's just dropped him back a couple of places. I think he's back in, what is that going to be? That's going to be P number 6, I believe.
Yeah,
well,
that's huge
well,
for
there we
him.
go.
He's lost 5 places from 1 apex.
Yeah, an absolutely horrendous start to this race, and also means that this front trio is actually starting to break themselves away, and that's going to be a gap that Sebring has to make up on his own once he gets past these 2 drivers ahead of him. There's Alex Basio. He's going to go side by side on the run up towards Indianapolis. This will put him on the inside for the right-hand kink, but the outside for the actual corner, and actually Basio is just going to back out of that one. No point in fighting.
Yeah, and also we had the driver of Godfrey there. He was trying to go for the race lead in your GT1 field. Haven't really talked about your GT2 field at all here today. The reason for that is because Zachary Levay is already, get this, trying to work out the maths here, 13 seconds ahead of his nearest competition.
So, yeah, that was about 3 seconds on this lap alone, and we haven't even finished this lap. It was around about 10 seconds the last time they headed their way across the line, and another 10 seconds to Max Fortis. So, the GT2 field definitely getting themselves spread out relatively quickly here. There's a side-by-side full position further up the field in your prototype division, though. I believe this was actually, was it involving Philip Babb? No, it was Hugville, number 10 machine, getting very, very slow under the Dunlop bridge there, letting his teammate pass. Was that slowdown penalty coming through the Dunlop chicane? I believe it is, because he just seemed to slow for no reason on exit.
Yeah, so we'll try and see what the situation is with that one, and we'll just be looking at that GT2 battle. Back now to LMP, and actually, Philip Burr is keeping in contact with Marcus Hamilton right now in that position for your race lead, because he hasn't lost any time over this last lap.
Yeah, it just seems like Marcus Hamilton, either Hamilton's trying to save a little bit of fuel, or he's just not able to break that draft right now. So it's definitely an interesting one to keep an eye on. You have to remember that also P number 3, Tobias Schultz, also not dropping far back off, is actually Hamilton. Very slow coming into Michelin there. Swap for position in the overall lead. He's
lost the race lead. So was that another slowdown penalty there? We're going to have a replay on board with Marcus Hamilton right now. Let's go back actually about another 15 seconds. Here we are. Apex in. Apex out. I'm not quite sure there. It doesn't look as though he had a slowdown penalty per se, but he has dropped back a second and a half over Philip Burr overall. You can see that Burr just closes. That is not slipstream there. That is Marcus Hamilton slowing down. You can see actually there on our camera just how quickly Burr overtook Marcus Hamilton.
Yeah, I think it's a similar situation to what we saw with the GT1 race leader, Sebring. He didn't completely and utterly cut the chicane, just went inside out of the white line onto that curb a little bit too much, and the iRacing system has flagged that as, oh, you've cut a little bit too much of the corner there, you're going to get a slowdown penalty. And also Schultz also right on the back of Hamilton now. Yeah,
indeed. So, and indeed, we've also got Paul Ilbrink right behind Emmanuel Galliner as they exit themselves now out of Arnage down towards the Porsche curve. So, on board of Paul Ilbrink as it stands right now. Good number of battles going on in your LMP2 field. As we go and have a look at Schultz as well. Schultz, you can't really make a pass into the Porsche curves. It will be down into the Ford chicane, if anything. And I don't actually think that Schultz is close enough out of the Porsche curves unless Hamilton makes a big mistake.
Well, Hamilton has already shown that he can make mistakes, especially coming into those Mulsanne chicanes with the slowdown penalty that he's already gained. So never say never if you're Tobias Schultz right now, but you've still got a good amount of time left in this race to make any moves. And you've also got a pit stop to do as well as they follow each other through the Ford chicanes at the end of the lap. And 1 hour, 5 minutes, still lots of time for Schultz.
Yep, 10 minutes of this race and score complete. Fastest lap scored by Philip Burr that last time by 3 minutes 21.409. over to your GT1 field, and Alexander Godfrey there versus... Fun?
Elbrink is down pit road.
Oh my word, already?
Yeah, and he's not going to be able to make it to the end here because it's only 50 minutes on the fuel tank for these HPDs.
Yeah.
So is there something technical wrong with him, or has he got some damage? Doesn't look like.
I saw some smoke down pit road, but it doesn't look as though it's coming out of Paul Elbrink's car. So the pit window, as I say, it is, I would agree, like you would have to save fuel, a dramatic amount of fuel, to make it to the end at this stage. For Paul Elbrink, however, that Radicals Online machine, it does look as though it's done for the day.
Well, he's still in the car, and he's actually off and away now. So that is a very, very interesting stop. I can't think of a reason why you'd stop now. It's way too early. You won't be able to make it to the end on the fuel tank unless, as you say, you've saved an ungodly amount of fuel, which I don't think is possible in these HPDs. So I have no explanation for that one, Will.
No, I don't have either. There is Paul Elbrink working himself now on the exit of the Dunlop chicane through towards the S's. Next thing he'll come up towards...
Ooh, did he leave quali fuel in?
One?
Did he leave quali fuel in? That could be a possibility.
Maybe. That could have been the thing, actually. And if it's quali fuel, then it's going to be a quali setup as well, which is very different to a race setup here. Because in qualifying trim, you basically want to have your car trimmed out as much as possible. In race setting, you don't want to have that.
Yeah, exactly. So it could be more problems than at first look for Paul Elbrink if he still has a qualifying setup on that car. But this is all conjecture at this point. We don't know for sure exactly what happens. Maybe we'll hear from Paul Elbrink after the race. But that's the solution that kind of makes the most sense right now.
Well, let's go back to your GT1 battle, because you have got yourself a 3-horse race going on right now. Alexander Godfrey is leading away over Marian Bubek there. So you've got yourself an Aston Martin out front, and then a Corvette in second place. Third place is an Aston Martin as well. So Britain versus America really is going on right now. And I'm actually interested to see what that number 11 machine can do in a straight line.
Yeah, usually you consider the Corvette to be a little bit lacking in straight line speed compared to the Aston Martin. The Corvette is usually very good at getting its traction down off of the slow speed corners, but in the straight line, not as strong as the Aston Martins. And the Aston Martins also favor higher downforce sections, especially in the Porsche curves. So that is those are the trouble sections that Babarek has to be thinking of right now. He's got to maximize his advantage elsewhere on track, like coming down into this corner, the Mulsanne hairpin. A good exit here that could be a benefit to him. Let's see what he does coming down through here. A little bit of a puff of smoke from Godfrey, your GT1 leader, but not really a good exit for Babarek. But so he's not really capitalizing on the strengths of that Corvette.
Yeah, and the gap is still about 0.4 of a second right now between P number 1 and P number 2. And this is one of the things I love about endurance racing as well, because the gaps seem small, but it is sometimes so hard to overtake. Now, Brabak is actually closing in towards Indianapolis, but backed out before he could try and make a move. That left-hander at Indianapolis, now down to the right-hander at Anage. As 15 minutes of this race will be scored complete. And Connery, we've not learned much really, except your prototype field is huge. Your GT2 field is packed in terms of they're already spread out, and your GT1 field, anything can happen.
Yeah, it's just your standard Le Mans race where everyone is, well, not exactly at this early stage showing their true pace. They're just all sitting in their respective drafting packs right now, and it's not until later in the race where we'll get an idea of who is going to finish where. As Babarek, your P number 2 in your GT1 field, dropped off the back of Godefroy coming into the Porsche curves there, and that's just where the Aston Martin is just going to stretch its legs with those high downforce corners. The Corvette is a little bit lacking in those particular sections of track, and this has just allowed Davarot as well behind to maybe smell an opportunity. But once it comes back to the Mulsanne, Babarek will have the benefit of the draft to drag him back up to your leader.
He will do indeed. As having a look behind as well, you still get yourself the number 8 machine scored in 4th place with the opportunity to go for a podium here today. Behind that, there's not much else going on in your GT1 field right now. here are the movers and shakers in your GT1 field. You see the fact that Alexander is up 2 places here today. The only other driver making up positions is the driver in 3rd place, that's Davaros, and also the driver in the 6th position, and that is Jos van Veen right now, who is up a total of 4 places. But for the most part, the most important story to talk about is the fact that Zaverick is down now by 3 places after that early incident, but he has gained up quite a bit of time after having that slowdown penalty.
Yes, he has. And if you look to the gap between himself and P number 3 right now, the car of Devereaux stands at around about 1.3 seconds heading their way down the Mulsanne Straight, but that's going to be coming down relatively quickly as Everett gets more and more of the draft of the 3 drivers ahead. It seems quite obvious that he is faster in the clear air right now, and that draft is just going to exaggerate things.
But also, sometimes getting into that dirty air can make your life a misery. Now, if you catch someone at the Porsche curbs, for example, that will just sort of waste your tyres for a 1/3 of a lap. And actually, I would say that Savaretic does not want that to happen to him today.
Yep, and they will actually just swap for position ahead of him. Devereaux down the inside of Babarek, so put Babarek down into that final podium position as Devereaux just a little bit tired, should we say, of being behind the Corvette. And look how much of a gap he's stretched out already on the exit of the corner. And will Devereaux go for the race lead here in GT1s? Nope, he's just going to sit behind his fellow Aston Martin driver ahead of him. And here comes Babarek because Devereaux lifted out so much. Babarek had the overspeed coming down into the Mulsanne hairpin and takes back the position.
So P number 2, P number 3 are intertwining right now. They are going at it. The gap is about 4/10 of a second right now. Babarek in 2nd place in a Corvette. 3rd place is the driver of Devereaux, and actually ahead of them, that is the battle for the race lead going on right now. We can see it on our screen, but that is the driver of Godfrey there, trying to go for the race lead. They are almost side by side as they now come down into Indianapolis, and it is going to be the number 11 machine who gets the advantage out of that one. So move your Corvette to the race lead.
Yep, and well, it is also a case of, do you want to be in the lead car in this train at the moment? Because what a lot of these drivers are doing behind, they're just fuel saving. They're looking to hit their fuel numbers. Of course, you can do a 1-stop in this race anyway without any fuel saving, but any fuel saving that you can get in means that you spend less time stationary in the stops. So do you want to be at the front of this train, not being able to save fuel quite as efficiently as the guys behind?
Yep, there's a replay then of the pass for the race lead. And there is Babarek then moving himself down to the inside on the run towards Indianapolis. I will say one thing as well, is that Devereaux was thinking about it as well, trying to move himself up into P number 2.
Yep, he was, but he just hangs back for now, and the driver behind him, Demis Savretti, of course, this driver trying to recover from his very early slowdown penalty, and getting an early slowdown penalty is perhaps worse than getting a slowdown penalty at any other time in the race, because you have such a group of cars behind you that you have to let through, and then you have to get back past them. As I said, slowdown penalty early on in the race is definitely a big problem that he had to contend with. But right now, he's right on the back.
I'd rather have a slowdown penalty at the start of the race than it is at the end.
Really? Can you take me through your reasoning behind that, Will?
If you have it at the end of the motor race, then you haven't got any time to readjust. Whereas if you have it early, then you have the opportunity to at least try and work a strategy to make yourself work better in the race overall. I'd rather be giving the penalty on that number 1 compared to that number 50.
Yeah, I just kind of just have to disagree with you there, Will, because you arguably spend more time, or lose more time, trying to make your places back on the cars ahead of you that you let through, because you lost, what is it going to be, depending on the severity, 1, 2, 3 seconds of the slowdown penalty. You also have to waste time trying to get past those cars ahead of you as well.
We are on board with the driver of Lennart Renault right now. He has got himself Jeff Farquhar just ahead of him. The gap is about 0.3 of a second. In fact, Rayart is looking very close on the run down in towards Indianapolis, and in fact, he's going to go for the move.
Yes, he is down the inside at the first little kink of Indianapolis, but then the main Indianapolis corner, that advantage switches to Jake Farquhar. But Rahat still not giving up on this move on the outside coming into Arnage. Maybe a little bit of a cutback move coming through here. Carry the momentum towards the exits. He gets very, very squirrely off the corner. A little bit of oversteer as they still head side by side on the run towards the Porsche curves.
Yeah, and next up will be the Porsche curves themselves. And there's a look. They are side by side once again. There is Rahat as they come through towards the Porsche curves right now. Oh, well, that's close.
Yeah, very close, and that is the reason why you don't tend to go too wide heading through the Porsche curves. It can be a bit of a sketchy situation indeed, but that is just Farquhar just defending his position from the number 6 right now, and Farquhar's doing a very good job considering that this is a single split race, so everyone who signed up for this race is in the exact same race no matter what your iRating is, and Farquhar being the number 28 car against the number 6 car, that is very, very good indeed, but he loses a lot of momentum coming through the Ford chicanes. Actually, Rahat had to pretty much brake on the exit of the corner to avoid running into the back of him.
Yeah, and that will mean now that Rahat will have the outside line if he wants it in towards 1, 2. No, we'll stay where he is. Right, that's a big move there, as that is going to be the driver of Rahat moving up one position, because that was a miserable move there by Jake Farquhar. He just overshot his braking down in towards the Dunlop chicane. As a consequence, loses P number 11.
I think that is in part due to experience as well. Rahat's definitely the more experienced driver. Just showed him the nose coming into the first part of the Dunlop chicane. Wasn't going to go for the move at all, but basically scared Jake into outbraking himself and pushing wide.
Indeed so. So that's right on board for a moment then with your new P number 11 driver. We're on board with that driver of Rahat. In towards the Porsche curves then for P number 11 on track. Let's go to your race leader in terms of your GT1 field, because that battle is still going on, Connery. You got yourself the driver of Damien Devrous at the front of the field, and then Marianne Babek then in second place. It is still Aston versus Corvette.
Yep, it is, and another situation of it's going to be a fuel-saving train behind your leader, even though they have been changing positions a bit. A lot of the time, if one driver has had to run over another, then they just lift out, just save that little bit of fuel that could reap its benefits in the one and only scheduled stop that we have. And a little bit more news with Paul Ulbrink. Usually the series alternates between 60-minute races and 75-minute races. Apparently he had the car fueled for a 60-minute race, so potentially only 30 minutes of fuel in that car, which won't get the car to the end in this sort of situation. So it's just a bit of a silly mistake, but it's easy to see how you could make that mistake with the times changing every race.
It's worth noting the top 4 in GT1 are separated by less than 2 seconds right now, and that is one of those that will say top 4 drivers separated by less than 2 seconds. And it is very close between some of these guys right now. We're on board again with the driver of Dennis, and he's actually going to work himself now up to P3.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's seen the pack start to split up, so he wants to be in that lead trio as he has to head his right around the outside Indianapolis, and he gets tagged.
There we are. So he has lost himself P4. He has not lost P4 overall yet to John Goodwin, but Goodwin is only about 1.5 seconds behind him. Replay coming up. Dennis has been unlucky here today. Here's the look down in towards Indianapolis. The two went side by side in towards Arnage. And it just looks as though the number 24 machine was like, well, I've got the inside line. The number 8 machine did come down, actually, a little bit there. So Dennis, down in P4, I would always say deserves to be in that position right now.
Yeah, I definitely think just looking at the replay that Godefroy, the number 24 car on the inside, pretty much had nowhere to go. He was like extreme left-hand side of the track next to the curb. He couldn't really take that corner any shallower without risking trying to cut the corner, and Savretic just basically turned across him there. I think that's how we'll call it.
Meanwhile, up front in your GT1 field, you have still got yourself Damien Devog leading the way over, and that is a very small gap actually. The gap between P1 and P2 and Marian Brabeck, because Brabeck is actually finding a way to close down your race leader in GT1. We're on board of him as we speak. And actually, I will say, as he goes now for P2, that's not a race lead actually, isn't it?
Yep.
And he's got it.
Oh, but the thing is, Davro is just going to come back on him, just using a little bit of what we call in NASCAR, a little bit of a side draft there, coming down in towards the Forza chicane, and will actually just defend that race leading position right now.
Towards the second one here on the Mulsanne straightaway. And, well, I say Brebeck, that was his best opportunity so far, but that driver we know has got talent, and he is trying to close once again. Second chicane won't do anything. Maybe to run down into Tete Rouge.
Yeah, maybe, just maybe, but Godefroy, even after that little bit of contact with Savretic just a lap ago, he is still on the back of your two race leaders in GT1, so he has come off pretty well after that instance. But then you look down towards Savretic, he is a good, probably around about, I would say just the two... actually, that's going to be about 5 seconds off of these guys right now. So he has definitely lost a lot as a result of that incident. As we see, the number 24 missed the apex of the Mulsanne hairpin there, so he's going to get a terrible run off as well. So he won't be able to challenge any of the two drivers ahead of him heading his way in towards Indianapolis. But the race for the prototype lead is still on. In fact, they're going side by side right now. Here comes Marcus Hamilton down the inside at the Forza chicane, the first Mulsanne chicane, with their first bit of lap traffic ahead of them as well. That is Prevost heading his way out of the way. But Marcus Hamilton now back into P1 after his early slowdown penalty.
Indeed, so there is Marcus Hamilton. He once again leads this motor race. The question will be here, Conway, does he deserve to lead the motor race?
Yeah, I think he does. I mean, apart from that one slowdown penalty, he's been pretty much flawless, just trying to make his way back through the field and back past your race leaders. So I don't see why he shouldn't be in the race lead right now.
Well, there is a replay then of what we saw a little bit earlier on here today, as we are here live on Racesport TV and on iRacing Live. Here is a look at Philip Diach. Simple pass. When you put it that way, it is a simple pass there, Connie.
Yeah, just a very, very simple pass to make his way through there. And Hamilton, he started to stretch the gap already, around about 0.8 up to 0.9 of a second on their way down to Indianapolis. So Hamilton wasting no time in trying to break the draft to the Radicals Online driver. And the number 10 is also back into play here for the two minor podium positions as well. Hoegville, he had a little bit of contact earlier on in this race, but he is back in play and looking to challenge Philip Bauer at the end of this first stint.
Indeed so. So there is the driver of Philip Bauer in second place right now, as we are getting close to halfway here in the Proto GT series. We will take a quick break. Back for more after this.
Proto GT Series live here on iRacing Live Racebot TV from the Le Mans circuit. We apologize for the extended break that we have there. Unfortunately, I don't think Will will be joining us for the rest of this broadcast, so it's just me to take you to the end of this 1 hour 15-minute race in the Proto GT Series. The vast majority of your prototype runners have made their one and only scheduled stops. It is still going to be Marcus Hamilton for that Thrustmaster Movano racing team out in P number 1. Then it's going to be Tobias Schultz, Philip Bauer, Paul Ulbrink, Emmanuel Galinier, as in fact those positions are very, very close indeed, with Ulbrink gaining one over Galinier. Actually, then is going to be Hoegville, then Martin Tellegard, then Renat Rat, David Stranzo, and then Martin Ober, rounding out your top 10 in your prototype field. Then looking at GT1s, it's going to be Marian Babarek leading from Damien Davot. Then it's going to be Alex Bassiou, Ville Valkanaki, and then Alexander Godfrey. He's down on pit road. He's currently running P number 5 with a very smoking engine. I don't think there's going to be P number 5 any longer, as the number 24 driver seems to have gotten himself involved in an incident. And unfortunately, I don't think we can show you that due to the issues that we have been having. But it also looks like problems for the number 10 as well, just as we're all getting back running here. Seems like drivers have decided to have a little bit of off-track excursions here. A single car incident for Hoegville, number 10 in the prototype field, heading himself in towards the tyre barriers at the Portage Curves. It just seemed like the car just completely broke away from him coming into the first part of the Portage Curves. No one else around to try and help him into the gravel, into the tyre barriers, and that is going to be the end of the number 10's race. as we also see number 2, Paul Ulbrink. He's going to head his way down onto pit road for the second time, and this was because of an error at the start of the race where he fueled his car for a 60-minute race instead of a 75-minute race. Of course, the Pro GT series does alternate between those 2 lengths of races, and the Radicals Online driver just making a very easily made mistake as he gets himself stopped in the box to get his fuel to the end. We did conjecture that he might have only put qualifying fuel in as he pitted on a very, very early lap of this race. I think it was lap number 3 that he had pitted himself in on. So he's going to get his fuel towards the end. Now he's going to be down through the field on perhaps his qualifying position. He did qualify P number 4. He's going to come out in what is going to be around about P number 11 here. As the next car back on track, I believe, is going to be Aldo Massa, and he's had his own fair share of troubles as well. So not a good day for a couple of your drivers in this very, very, very big prototype field. 35 cars, obviously not all 35 still running right now. As looking back towards your GT1 field, not all that many battles in this one. We did see that pack of 3 cars was 4 cars at one point at the front early on in this race before we went to that break. But unfortunately, with all the stops that have been happening, then it seems like that one has just spread out a little bit. As also the number 8 out of this race, and so that must have happened when we were on that break. Because he's down on pit road and doesn't seem to be coming out anytime soon. So a bad race for Dennis Avrete goes from bad to worse with that incident, because he did get that slowdown penalty early on in the race that put him down positions, and now he is completely out of the race. As a couple of drivers still look to gain from that, though. You've got the likes of John Goodwin, Dean Underwood currently positioned behind him on track, so they have one position to gain from the bad luck of Savaretic there, as there was a change position further up the prototype field. I believe this was Garlinier as he heads his way out of what it was going to be the Yanage corner. He's currently now trying to chase down Philip Bauer, as Bauer, he's dealing with traffic of his own class here, so that could be a little bit tricky. But heading his way into Arnage, he's going to get by that stray prototype relatively easily, as actually that prototype has to narrowly avoid the tire barrier on the outside, being a little bit too generous, you have to say, on the exit of Arnage there. Could have ended his own race with letting the lead lap prototype through. But battle for P number 1 lead, or at least LMP2 these cars are. We're going to get those LMP1s in not too distant future, the Porsche and the Audi. But for this race, LMP2s, the HPD ARXs, and Marcus Hamilton, Tobias Schultz, very close on circuit now. Before the pit stops, I saw Marcus Hamilton pull out a margin of around about a 2-second gap to P number 2. By virtue of those pit stops, this has brought Tobias Schultz right back into it. And I wonder if we can just get an onboard from the perspective of that number 12 as he tries to chase down Marcus Hamilton. This is your RaceSpot TV fan immersion. Well, that was a lap on board from the perspective of the number 12 of Tobias Schultz, as he actually did lose quite a bit of time on that last lap. Around about, it's going to be around about 1.5 seconds that he lost on that last lap. So not very good for him. As we have a look at the number 15 and the number 28, this is a battle going on for just is going to be inside of your top 10. It's a battle for the 10th position, in fact, between Maximilian Peckel and Jake Farquhar. And did hear over the driver radio while that onboard lap was going on. Jake Farquhar apologizing. So something could have happened between these two drivers, as they have a little bit of GT1 traffic to deal with in the Ford chicane. And this is not the place where you want to be dealing with traffic, because he slows you up so much if you're a prototype. But finally, Peckel will all get his oversteer and managed to get himself blocked by his own lap traffic of his own class there. That was Bert van der Brandt, which was a very, very tricky situation indeed, but they managed to get through it without any sort of damage to the cars. And Farquhar's going to get blocked here by the GT1 car, just heading his way across his nose there. And Farquhar's going to outbrake himself for the Dunlop chicane, and is going to be forced on the inside of the track by the GT car that was coming through him. So that was a messy couple of apexes there for Farquhar. That's just put him back just a little bit. No positions though. It just means that gap to Peckel is going to be just a little bit larger than it once was. As I saw Bastiou, the number 30, this is your P number 3 GT1 car, don't forget, got very, very squirrely on their way up to Tetra Rouge. And then Farquhar, he has to get back past these two cars, back past the GT1 car. He has to try and get back past the lap down prototype now, as he looks to get that done coming into the Forza chicane. Don't think there's going to be any need to be fuel saving now, unless he drastically underfueled the car at the first pit stop. But he's just going to hang behind just for now, so maybe he is a little bit more marginal on fuel than we perhaps thought, and just taking it very, very patient here. You have to think the more time he gets stuck behind Van der Brandt, then the more time that he's going to lose to Maximilian Peckel. Looks like Maximilian Peckel is going to be pretty good on the fuel, I would have thought. But saying that, he did pit what is going to be... actually, Farquhar did pit around about a lap earlier than a lot of your front runners and prototypes, so his fuel issue may be a little bit exacerbated compared to the other drivers. So maybe that's why he's just hanging behind the number 58 car right now. As we have a look back towards the number 22, the 17, and the 4. This is a little bit of a 3-car scrap going on for P number 12 in your prototype field right now, as they get by that the GT1 car that Farquhar had a couple of issues with heading their way in on the first part of that, in the first sector. But those two prototypes head their way through fine. Will Massa head his way through fine? He will, as after he dives down the inside, almost a little bit of contact with the lap traffic. But Massa definitely cutting it fine there. He didn't want to get that car in between him and the two other prototypes ahead. He also risks losing the draft if he loses too much time behind there, but it's not going to be too much of an issue for Aldo Massa to head his way through. He has lost a little bit of time, but due to the draft around here at a circuit like Le Mans, then it's not going to be too much of an issue to drag himself back up to the back of Dmitry Lenov and Xavier Del Cavallo as well. Oh, Massa, he has a huge slide coming through the apex of Indianapolis there. Completely unforced error, got himself very loose even on entry. So this is coming out of the right-hand kink just before Indianapolis. Just got the back end out, tried to get the car corrected for the braking down into Indianapolis, got on the curb and just slid himself right across the apex. I wonder if we can get a replay of that one. But that was a fantastic car control from Aldo Massa, even though you have to say ultimately it was kind of unnecessary getting that loose onto the entries of the corner, but still well held from Aldo Massa to keep that car from going anywhere else but the racing service. Looking in your GT1 field, though, things still very, very spread out. Marian Babarek in that Corvette, doing very, very well indeed at the lead of this race. And we mentioned that he was embroiled in that battle with Davro and Dennis Savaretic, who was unfortunately out of this race early on in the race. But this second stint has really, really worked well for him, as he's pulled out a huge gap now as the driver of David Soranzo makes his way by in the prototype. you have to say in the Corvette, probably not the best car around here if past Le Mans 24-hour events are to be believed, but Sebring definitely bucking the trend, bringing that Corvette to what is going to be a very likely, shall we say, P1 for your GT1 field. But as in racing, it isn't over until the fat lady sings. Many things can still happen in the final quarter of an hour of this race. But battle looking to be on now for P3 in your prototype field. Galinier has actually caught up to the back of Philip Bauer, and Bauer actually had a horrible lap time that last time by 3 minutes 34.3 compared to Galinier's 3 minutes 52.7. That is a very, very big advantage to Galinier on that last lap, and it's just allowed him to get back inside that slipstream to the red closing line driver ahead of him and perhaps challenge for P3 at the end of this race. And he has quite a lot of time to do it in as well, 15 minutes. And by my reckoning and my calculations, around about 4 laps for these prototypes to battle it out. That could be more than enough time that Gallion needs, as he has the run coming down in towards the right-hand kink before Indianapolis. Will have the inside line for this one, and Philip Bauer not going to fight it, and he's just going to back out of that one and probably attempt the repass later on in this race if the opportunity arises for him, as the draft lock is so pronounced at the circuit. The 3-car train for P11 is going to be now between Carvalho, Villeneuve, and Jake Farquhar is still going on. Villeneuve has the run coming down into Arnage over Carvalho, but decides to back out of that move. As I said before, maybe a little bit more fuel saving by some of these drivers needs to be done, especially those that pitted a little bit earlier to try and get themselves towards the end of the race. But for the vast majority of drivers, I don't think that would be an issue, and it's more of a strategic move of where do you want to be on that last lap, because leading coming onto the last lap is not necessarily where you'd want to be, especially if you can get the draft pass done, like Villeneuve is just demonstrating for me here, coming down in towards Indianapolis, and he will get that position complete over Carvalho, and that is actually a repass again. So Carvalho got past somewhere at the first part of this lap, and Villeneuve getting himself back past coming down in towards Indianapolis. Still a little bit of traffic ahead of these guys. GT2 field, we haven't been talking much about them. Well, because there isn't really that much to talk about, because there's only 3 cars and they're spread out by quite a margin. One of them is even out of this race. Oliver Dean out, classified P42 in the overall standings. It's just Zachary Levay leading this GT2 race, and Max Forte is pretty much nowhere near him. So not a good day for the Fords, not a good turnout for the Fords, but sometimes that does happen. But we have a 35 car prototype field to get excited over, so it's not too much of an issue. Just following these prototypes as they head their way down in towards the Ford chicane. And number 22, Dimitri Villeneuve, looking to get past the lap traffic relatively quickly, but Van Brandt, again, it's the same driver that's causing a couple of issues for the drivers on laps ahead of him. Not really surrendering the position too easily to the other prototypes, heading his way through on them. Let's see if he gets out of the way on the run up towards the Dunlop chicane. He does take the outside line, and he cuts across in front of Dimitri Villeneuve. So Van Brandt definitely not being the typically courteous bit of lap traffic for Villeneuve and Carvalho to have to deal with. So a little bit of patience required from Villeneuve and Carvalho, maybe just to make that draft pass on the lap traffic coming down the Mulsanne. Good run for Carvalho coming out of Tête Rouge. He's going to get this side-by-side action going on the first part of the Mulsanne. May get some help from prototype ahead. In fact, that help does go to Dimitri Villeneuve. Just Villeneuve sitting in the slipstream of the car, good second down the road. The draft does extend back that far, and you can see that advantage that he's getting just exacerbates down the entirety of the first part of the Mulsanne, heading their way into the Ford chicane. This is pretty much the only closest battle that we have out there on track right now. The various battles that Paul Olbrink was involved in have all but fizzled out as Olbrink heads his way back through the rest of the field after his a little bit of a mistake with the fuel. But to gain a P number 8 out of all that in a 35 car prototype field, even with a fuel mistake, that is definitely something to be commended. Just going to have a little bit of a ride on board with the number 17, Xavier De Carvalho, as the 2 cars ahead of him. Well, one of them is for position, but the other one, a little bit of lap traffic that refuses to get out of the way. A little bit of contact between the 15 and the number 22 there, heading into the Dunlop chicane. That was very, very interesting indeed. This was a battle for position. In fact, that did close up on that last lap. Pekel and Dimitri Linov. Pekel down the inside. Just didn't leave his man enough room on the outside of the corner. Just pushed him outside of the track. And as a result, Linov still ahead, at least at the end of that move. But look at this, coming towards live pictures with number 15. 3 wide down the Mulsanne will have to go. Pekel just stranded in the middle there. These are all for position. Dmitry Linov and Xavier Del Carvalho now side by side heading their way down in towards the Forza chicane. But then that will be a side by side potentially back with Pekel, as Pekel has to drop towards the end of this train right now. They have all managed to get themselves by the problem, shall we say, prototype driver that was holding them up a little bit. So now they are free to race, even with a little bit of traffic ahead on the Cavallo. Still has the slipstream over Linov, heading their way down into the Michelin chicane, but will just lift out of it, feeling that the opportunity isn't on, especially with the danger of lap traffic ahead of him. So he is just going to be rather patient, heading their way down into the Michelin chicane, and in fact they are going to get held up behind the traffic there. So I don't think Cavallo would have wanted to be going side by side with traffic ahead of them. That is always a danger situation in endurance racing. They will head their way by the P2 Aston Martin driver. As well, that P2 Aston Martin driver, the Damien Davro, as he just gets in the way of Pekel, heading around the outside, and actually Aston Martin just punted towards the outside of the Mulsanne there. I believe that was Philibert Prevot, a lap down on the rest of your GT1 field. Just broke for the Arnage corner as normal, but then just slowed up a bit too much. A little bit of miscommunication with the prototypes behind. He did leave the inside line open for the prototypes to dive down his inside, but Linov just gave him a little bit of a push, and then guess what? Cavallo gave Linov a bit of a push in the Arnage corner, and as a result, both of those drivers have a little bit of damage. Pekel manages to get his way through fine, and so does P2 in GT1 Damien Devro. But that was a very, very concerning instance, and yet another typical instance in endurance racing where there is a little bit of miscommunication between the two classes. But looking at the damage that Carvalho and Villeneuve has sustained. So Villeneuve will have a little bit of rear end damage as a result of that move. And it's just a little bit of a bent up bodywork at the back of that car. It's actually Tobias Schultz. This was P number 2 in your prototype field, having to dive down onto the lane. And I wonder if that is, there's no damage to his, actually there was damage to his car, to the left front wheel hub that he did manage to get repaired. And you have to wonder, did he get that on this last lap? It's going to be a rather lengthy check to see if it did. The big problem area could be the Porsche curves, as he headed their way through there just fine, I believe. But you would have said maybe that was a little bit of superficial damage to the left front sort of wheel hub of the car, the left front clip. But you know how fragile that these prototypes can sometimes be, even if a little bit of the most inconsequential damage can be caused for a meatball flag in iRacing. So it's definitely not the race Schultz would have wanted from this point forward, having to take that extra stop. But he is ahead of the other driver that had to take an extra stop. That was Paul Elbrink. And Elbrink is around about 9 seconds behind Schultz right now. So Schultz has around about 3 or 4 seconds to make up to his next competitor here in David Soranzo in P number 7. So Schultz drops from P number 2 to P number 8 as a result of that pit. But more scrapping going out on track right now, or at least battles that are close. Aldo Massa and Xavier de Cavallo are just getting themselves close. And here comes, guess what? It's another little bit of lap traffic, getting the draft pass over a lead lap prototype there. That was Brent van Brabant, and Brabant, if I get that pronunciation right. I'm no doubt I am butchering that pronunciation. I am British after all, that is what we do. As he will make his way through, and as history has shown, he's not really one to get out of the way quickly of the lead lap prototypes. So we'll see what will come of this one, as Massa still tries to track down Peckel. But even though Massa had a very, very good last lap of 337.1 compared to Peckel's 341.0, then Peckel, of course, he had those issues on that last lap at the Mulsanne corner with the lap traffic. That has put him down a little bit. The Corvette ahead of him, though, is the GT1 race leader in Marian Barbarek, as we only have 3 minutes to go, 3 minutes 25 seconds to go in this race. But unfortunately, the battles have all spread out, mostly except for this battle between Peckel and Aldo Massa, and even that one, by normal racing standards, isn't that close either, as the lap car does decide to separate them. So white flag is currently in the air. Marcus Hamilton has made his way by the starter stand, so another 3 minutes 30 seconds left until he makes his way back around and looks to take P number 1 in the prototype field. Philip Bauer still 17.2 seconds behind at this stage. So not really any threat for Marcus Hamilton to be dealing with at the end of this race. He will just be fine all hopes for Massimo Vano, because he did make that mistake early on with getting the slowdown penalty, so he is prone to making mistakes, even though he doesn't make them often. It's not impossible that something might happen. If I forgive him, please forgive me if I'm just jinxing him right now. That's probably what's going to happen. As Peckel and Massa, well, Massa has closed the gap on this last lap, so it's going to have to be a last lap hope somewhere on circuit for Massa to get himself into P number 11. As they head on their run down towards the Ford chicane for the second to last time. And also ahead of these guys, you also have the number 22 of Dmitry Linev as well. That could potentially be a factor in this last lap scrap between these two drivers, as they will pass the start-finish line to get their final lap started. Now, does Massa want to get this move done early, or does he want to save it until the end of the Mulsanne? He's going to go for the inside, potentially coming down into Dunlop, as the Peckel actually locks up the brakes there. The left front tyre all locked up. He will get a slowdown penalty as a result of that, but is that going to be enough to let Aldo Massa past? It doesn't look like he's going to save it right now, as he does drop back a little bit. But Peckel if he doesn't serve that slowdown penalty, he's going to be hit with a stop-and-go penalty at the end, as actually he has dropped back, has served that slowdown penalty. Here comes Massa down towards the driver's right-hand side, coming into the Mulsanne. He will get that draft pass complete, but the thing is, this Mulsanne is so long that Peckel can get the pass back as they weave all the way down the first part of the Mulsanne. Massa trying to break that draft as Peckel comes back on him outside line for the first part of the Forza chicane, but Massa will get that move defended coming down into there, so opportunities running out right now for the number 15 driver as Massa gets a whole bunch of oversteer coming off the corner. This could be the opportunity for the 15 to get himself by, as he's all backed up behind the Aldo Massa right now. Wasn't able to get himself by, just didn't know which direction to go in as he goes driver's left-hand side now. That was a big opportunity for Peckel as they almost slammed doors if these cars actually had functioning doors on their way down towards the into the Michelin chicane, and Peckel will gain that position, but still this is not over. Massa can still head his way past. The positions could be changed again on their way down to Mulsanne, could be changed again on their way down towards Indianapolis. As Marcus Hamilton's heading his way through towards the Ford chicane now for his final lap. It's been an absolutely flawless race for the Thrustmaster Movano driver. The last two apexes are taken sweetly, a little bit low oversteer off the corner, but that doesn't matter for Marcus Hamilton as he will take the prototype race win here. Babarek is still on the Mulsanne, so we divert our attention back to this battle for P number 11 between Maximilian Peckel and Aldo Massa. This one will be over before the GT1 leader heads his way across the line, so we'll be sticking with this one till its conclusion here. Aldo Massa draft down towards Indianapolis through the little slight right-hand kink as he has to go driver's left-hand side. They're still giving the inside line for Indianapolis, but not this corner beforehand. A little bit of contact there coming down into the entry, and that's going to be Maximilian Peckel. Oh, he gets all out of control there, and he is going to lose that position. Not going to lose any more positions. That car behind is a lap down compared to him, and you have to say there's probably no chance for Peckel to gain that position back over the number 4 driver, as they're going to be heading their way down in towards the Porsche Cribs for the final time. So Aldo Massa looking to get P number 11 as he heads his way through the final couple of corners. A little bit of that traffic to deal with in the form of John Goodwin that could hold Massa up here as he has to go around the outside of the right-hander, but no issues for him. Just another chicane to go before he can claim P number 11 after what was a very frantic beginning to that last lap. But 2 more chicanes to go for him, the Ford chicanes. There's one done, and the other, and he will take P number 11 as we have a look back to what is going to be your GT1 race winner. Well, he has 2 chicanes to go. It's Marian Babarek in that Corvette. Slow prototype ahead of him. He has to be careful of it in the way into the Ford chicanes, but Marian Babarek, a very, very busy first part of the race for him, embroiled in the various battles that were going on, but a very, very comfortable final stint for him. And Marian Babarek in that Corvette is going to head his way across the line and take P number 1 for your GT1 field. Then Deveau, he was also involved in the P number 1 battle as well early on in the race. He has to settle for P number 2, quite a couple of seconds behind your leader. As your 4GT leader, we almost forgot about them because, well, they're only 3 cars strong, and 2 of the cars are pretty much out of the race at the halfway stage. But Zachary Levay is going to be the 4GT that's going to come out on top. Number 29 driver going to get his race win in the Ford GT. As long as that car can make it to the end, it was a little bit weird on the downshifts for the Ford chicane there, but I think he is okay. Zachary Levay going to take the race win in your GT2 field. It's actually very slow out of the Ford chicane, and he is out of fuel. He runs out of fuel coming across the line. That's how marginal it was for him. Of course, no opportunity to save fuel for him because the rest of his field basically dropped off the back of him late on in the race there. So very, very marginal for the Fords. But this is your final results. In your prototype field, Marcus Hamilton for Thrustmaster Movano comes out on top with a 19.2 second advantage over Philip Bauer. The final position on the podium will go to Emmanuel Galinier. Then the ones not on the podium. P number 4, Leonard Rath. P number 5, Martin Telgaard. Then it's going to be David Taranto. Tobias Schultz with that late pit stop, that unforced pit stop, shall we say, puts him down in P number 7. Paul Ilbrink, similar sort of situation for him, P number 8. Then Martin Kober, Dmitry Linev, Aldo Massa. That was the battle between Massa and Packel. The P number 12 driver was the battle that we were watching at the end, but that one does go to Massa. Then Xavier de Carvalho, Jake Farquhar, Henrik Nielsen, Alex Basson, Alejandro Ivan Villamartin will be the last car on the lead lap. And cycling through the rest of your prototype finishes now. Then you've got to have a look back towards your GT1 field. Very, very exciting in the first stints of this race, but once those pit stops happened, then we came back after a little bit of an extended break, then that one just spread out with nothing else really until the end, until Marian Babarek took the checkered flag. And then Damien Davro, then it's Alex Besiu going to be rounding out the podium. Then Vil Valamaki, John Goodwin, Drew Vries, Philbad Pevro, Alexander Govoy, Dennis Savaretic with the issues in the middle of the race, and then Dean Underwood will be rounding out your GT1 field. Then of your 3-car GT2 field, it's going to be Zachary Levay coming out on top, pretty much unchallenged throughout all of this race, picks up his race win, and then all of these finishes, because, you know, it's a 3-car grid, everyone gets to finish on the podium. Max Fortas, and then Oliver Dean finishing out that field. And that's about all we have time for here for RaceSpot TV on RaceSpot TV Primetime, streaming live here on iRacing Live. Join us next week for more RaceSpot TV Primetime.